Oh, guys, good, you're here. I am so excited. Guess what? I hope this isn't about your podcast again. Why, did you finally listen to it?
Da-da-da-da, 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 the Groomer Next Door production. And now a message from our friends at Fetching Food.
The 1970s and 80s had Elbow, Gravy Train, Purina, Meow Mix, and Bell Bottoms. You've changed your clothes, now change how you feed your pet. Like Bell Bottoms, kick the kibble and join us in the 21st century with the healthiest diet for dogs and cats. Feed naturally, feed raw, feed Fetching Foods.
The Groomer Next Door Podcast.
I'm from Missouri. That's all I know.
Hello, pups and kittens, and welcome to another fun-filled and high-flying episode of the Groomer Next Door Podcast. I am your host, Chris Green, and joining us this week is Michelle McGuire. She created MUFFs. It is protective earmuffs for your pups in extreme decibels to protect their hearing. And she's also a pilot, and she's going to tell us all about all of that and more in just a moment. But before then, let's go into our fact of the week. Because we're talking about hearing, I thought it was a good idea to go with the fact that would talk mostly about hearing. 8 fun facts about your dog ears. Dogs have around 18 muscles in each ear. They can hear about 4 times better than humans. When a dog tilts their head, it may have to do with their hearing. Dog ears are not only used for hearing, they're key elements of body language. Dogs' ear canals are shaped like an L. Puppies, on the other hand, are born deaf. Well, by that sound, Michelle is about to enter the podcast studio. So with that said, welcome Michelle McGuire from MUFFs to the podcast.
Oh, hello. Hold on a sec. Dad, we have a guest on the podcast.
Alright, buckle up and jump on in. We are actually going to take a flight with our guest, Michelle McGuire. She is the creator and pilot, which I thought was really cool, of MUFFs. And I would not have known about this if it wasn't for one of our customers coming in. And we were talking about this the other day, but thank you for being on the podcast. And I want to know so much more about you and how this whole process came about. So thank you for being on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure.
Yes. Well, it was kind of humble beginnings. I mean, I have my pilot's license, and my husband does not like to fly. So rather than just, tooling around the county by myself, I started taking the dog with me. And even though he didn't, verbally complain about the noise, it just killed me knowing how loud it was in there. So, Lord knows, if I could have found something for him online, I'd have put it in my cart and called it a day. But there just wasn't anything out there. So, of course, I had to set upon a quest to try to make something, and to try to make something homemade. It just was ugly and ineffective. So I actually contacted a retired engineer friend of mine who was also a pilot. So I didn't think he'd laugh at me too bad, but he did. But after he thought about it for a bit, he says, why not? So he started knocking up some prototypes, and he's in North Carolina and I'm in Maryland. So he mailed it to me. I tried on the dog, and, just like, Phil, it needs more curve. He says, well, how much more? I said, well, I don't know, more. So, back and forth a couple times, and then when we finally got a decent working prototype, took Super Cooper the Wonder Mutt up for a test flight, and it was just me and him, and he had gotten in the back seat, so I took off, and when I landed, he was wearing like a necklace. I was like, you silly dog. What kind of test flight is this? But on a return trip, he didn't take him off, and he never took him off after that.
Interesting.
So, yeah. Dogs will tend to knock them off once, maybe twice, because they don't understand why you put this gear on their head. But then as soon as they knock them off, they can hear the difference. And you can watch it in their face if they do the math and want them back on. So it's a short learning curve. It's not any kind of training. It's the dog decides he wants to wear these.
Now, I've never been in a little Cessna before. I've always kind of had this little desire. I imagine it has to be loud because here you have the engine in front of you. And
oh, yeah.
I can only imagine the sounds. Now, being a pilot, you have the earphones on so you can hear control tower and everything else. But when you don't have them on, what is it, in a sense, what does it sound like?
Well, on takeoff at full power, you're pushing 90 decibels. So, and there are planes that are louder than mine. So, yeah, even at level cruise speed, you would not want to be flying without a headset. No sane person would.
Interesting. Now, I always say this is always...
dogs, their hearing is more acute than ours. So,
oh, that's true.
Yeah, it makes a big difference to them.
So do you ever say to your husband, you know, if I would have known that you don't like flying, this would have been a complete deal breaker?
Well, no, I knew he wasn't, you know, he will get on an airplane. He doesn't like it, but he will do it. So he has flown with me. But like I say, it's just not his first choice of transportation.
That is still my first choice of any kind of transportation. I love getting into a plane. I just think it's the coolest way.
Yeah.
There's really three ways to travel. It's plane, train, and automobile. But, I mean, I would rather jump in a plane. It's so much more fun. You get there quicker, too.
Oh, yeah, and if you're looking out the front of the plane, it's even more cool, you know, rather than flying commercially. True.
I mean, but then again, you know, you don't have somebody coming around, you know, offering you peanuts and a drink. You have to bring your own.
That's a downside. That's a downside.
So, how did you get your pilot's license? How did all of that start? And where was the love and desire? Where did that all come from?
Oh, I'm just a weird person. You know, every decade or so, it's like I got to shake something up. You know, when I turned 30, I started taking karate, and I got a black belt. That actually took a couple of years. I turned 40, I went and decided I'd get my pilot's license. And, well, I thought about, you know, like brushing up on my pool game and going out on the women's pro tour. And not so much. By that time, I had started the business, which is pretty time-consuming.
Understandable. That is very understandable. You know, it's funny because a lot of people I've talked to over the years that have a pilot's license, they're like, oh, yeah, I've had it since before I even had a driver's license. I'm thinking to myself, interesting. And here it was just one of those, hey, you know, I'm kind of, you know, figuring I need to do something new with my life. I mean, of all things, pilot. Very interesting. I mean, hey, all power to you. I think that's awesome. So,
well, a lot of my flying nowadays is animal rescue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a lot of the transports, you know, before pilots and paws came around was ground transports, and they would operate in legs. So I know on the East Coast here, mainly I'm flying down to North Carolina, sometimes West Virginia. They just don't have the same spay and neuter mentality, so it's just a huge overpopulation problem down there. And most of the shelters down there are kill shelters. So there's rescue groups that, you know, go into the shelters, pull out whoever's at the front of the line, and they work with sister organizations. You know, normally when I'm picking them up from North Carolina, they're going to Philadelphia, Buffalo, Syracuse, you know, or the north where they get adopted out. So that's a good reason to fuel up the tank.
Yeah, I would imagine. You know, out of just morbid curiosity, what is the difference in fuel for an airplane in cost to a vehicle?
You should add about, you know, $2.50.
Really?
A gallon, yeah.
Oh, here I would have thought it was like $8 or something like that a gallon. I never knew. I've always wondered.
No, I think the last time. See, I prefer not to even know. I just give them my plastic and, you know, make it happen. I think it's, you know, like $5.20 or something a gallon right now.
Wow, Oh, okay. And what does a typical plane have on its tank? How many gallons?
My little Cessna Skyhawk holds 56 gallons.
Oh, well, that would actually run you some money then. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like,
Well,
some gallons.
a friend of mine. Now, you don't figure miles per gallon, you're figuring gallons per hour, and I'm burning like, between 7 and 8 gallons an hour. But in an hour, I'm trucking along 120 miles. Depends on the winds. I mean, I might be doing 160 miles. So a friend of mine actually said, I'm getting better gas mileage than his minivan, you know, consider the distance I'm going.
Is there such a thing, and I mean, this is a stupid question, completely, I do shiny red ball moments, so this is one of them. Is there such a thing as a hybrid airplane? Besides a glider.
Yeah, electric and solar and, like, I don't know, you know, me and batteries don't have a good relationship, so I don't know if I want to rely on an electric airplane.
Oh, it's just, and I'm thinking, you know, why Tesla hasn't made an airplane? I mean, and now I say it, it's probably in production, and I'm just, you know, saying it's already happening, but it was just one of those weird ones. I'm like, yeah, hybrid planes, that makes sense.
They're working on it.
That I'm not surprised. Of course, I don't think I ever have a original idea. These smart people, they have them, and they've had them decades ago, and now here I am going, ooh, how about a hybrid? Yeah, it's been done, but just a thought. Now, we were talking the other day, and we were talking about proper use. And I want to make sure that we definitely go into it, because as I told you, how it all came about was one of our grooming customers came into their shop and told us about your product and said how great it worked. And their dog was flying commercial, and I guess has a little bit of a phobia of flying, doesn't like the sounds inside the cockpit or cabin, and it worked. So, you know, we started talking about the proper uses and the improper uses of the actual product of the MUFF, and I wanted to, you know, hear from you what is suggested and what is the, yeah, it's probably not a good idea of use for MUFFs.
Well, these are meant to prevent hearing damage in dangerously loud environments. So if you are wearing hearing protection, or you should be, then so should your dog. Some folks have unrealistic expectations about what these are. They think if they put them on the dog won't be able to hear anything. Not true. It's reduced the decibel between 25 and 28. Where they really excel is where we started out. Our bread and butter will probably always be general aviation, but the police and the military are using them on the gun range and search and rescue, helicopter transport, things like that. NASCAR races, believe it or not, a lot of people take the whole family and the dog to the races, and that's very, very loud. Most recently, I think the fastest growing segment of my market right now is medical service dogs, because people periodically go to concerts and movies and things that are just really loud. Parades, you know. One fella, he plays trumpet in the student marching band. He has a service dog, so things like that. Thunderstorms, we don't recommend them for that, because most of the time the dog's flipping out long before there's any thunder. You know, the air pressure has dropped, the sky got dark, the wind's kicked up. There's just way too many things going on. Fireworks, it's a better application, but if you're just hearing pop, pop, pop off in the distance and it's not very loud, you know, and the dog's afraid of the sound because he doesn't know what it is, he's probably still going to be afraid of the sound regardless of how loud it is. You know, he just doesn't understand that sound. But 4th of July, that's a bigger holiday for us than Christmas. I mean, sales just surge this time of year.
It's funny because, you know, I'm in the Midwest, and of course we have the crazy kind of storms. And it's more or less just a change in temperature and the feel of the storms that they feed off of them. Yeah, they hear it, But even in our shop, they don't actually even react in the shop. In our grooming salon, they never react, which is kind of weird, but I guess it's the open concept. You know, I always say 4th of July, New Year's Eve. If you're at home, well, just have your dog by you, have the TV on, and it really isn't going to be a big deal. If you have to leave, well, turn on the TV, have a nice environment for them, and it should be okay. People really do overthink the whole process. It's simplified. You know, that's the one thing. And you've kind of come to that point where it's like, look, I've got a product that works, but like everything, there is a right way and a wrong way. So that's, you know, obviously it's like people who put thunder jackets on a dog when they don't need one. That's what you use for a thunderstorm, not MUFFs.
Right. Yeah, my dog was just never afraid of anything, so, I mean, he stick his nose up to a jackhammer to see what it was. You know, the sounds just never seemed to bother him, so he wasn't afraid of thunderstorms. But I know it's a big problem for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those interesting, you know, you think about it. I mean, you have kids, you realize that the kids, they have a fear. Well, some. Mine just goes whatever, but there are kids that are like, hey, you know what? I don't like this sound. I didn't like it when I was younger. I hated thunder and lightning. And I didn't even grow up in the Midwest. I grew up in the West Coast. And I hated it there. But you know, you gotta treat kids and dogs the same. Now, speaking of dogs, this also applies to cats too, correct?
We have cat customers. What I tell folks is, you know, they fit a cat. Whether or not Kitty's going to wear it, that's kind of between you and Kitty. I mean, I don't know that a lot of them have the same sense of humor required to go on a set of mutt-muffs and climb in an airplane, but they fit cats, and we do have some cat customers. There's pictures out on the customer gallery. Kind of funny.
What I love about your actual gallery is, I mean, you've really put together a massive and yet very unique description where there's just a lot of pictures. And I will say that my favorite part was seeing police dogs, search and rescue, and service dogs. I mean, you really were able to put all that in there, and I love it. And like I told you before we recorded, I always love seeing dogs working. That is my favorite thing in this world.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I hate the fact that dogs, and I'm going to even use the word cats in a lot of cases, they're more productive than a lot of humans, which kills me on a daily basis.
Yeah, the customer gallery is great because it helps, you know, other customers, you know, get questions like, I have a basset hound. I don't know what you're going to do with those ears. It's like, hang on, let me show you a picture. I think we pretty much have every breed out there now.
Yeah, and it doesn't, it's, I guess one thing that was the first thing I wanted to look at was, oh, is it going to make the dog or cat, even in this case, look goofy? And it's like, no, actually, it looks, in a sense, like the same ear kind of protection that they use in wrestling. Not, you know, the fake wrestling. I'm talking about real wrestling. And I was like, oh, that's pretty unique how the structure actually came about. Because, you know, dogs have big ears, which I can relate to. And I think that that's such a cool concept that you guys really focused on that.
Well, the function end of it was came together quickly. It was the form, the aesthetics of it that took a little more time to develop. So, but you know, it had to look nice. I mean, every dog doesn't want to look silly.
You made it work. I mean, I'll give you that. You made that work really well. And again, you know, it's not something that's gonna. It's not like you guys made something that would look like elf ears or something like that.
Right.
It wasn't something goofy that all of a sudden people will be looking and go, oh my gosh, why would you do that to your dog? I mean, it really is. Yeah. It's uniformed, and I thought that was good.
Yeah, they look pretty spiffy, and when you add some goggles or the rec specs in there with it, it's quite a look.
It is, and a lot of fun. You know, it was, and like I said, it was a lot of fun, especially seeing police dogs, which I absolutely love. You know, seeing them in their environment. I love it, and it was just so cool to see all these things. Now, we talked about this. This was kind of something I was like, I gotta throw this into the mix. But you were telling me about different strange questions you've received over the time. And I just think that it's always interesting to hear some things that actually are asked because they are funny, even though, yes, there is no such thing as a stupid question. It's just one of those, it's fun to actually hear them. So, is there any of them that you can share?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. It ranges from things like, will my dog wear these all day while I'm at work in case a fire truck goes by? The answer is no. There was a lady from Australia who wanted to know if her dog would sleep with these on, because if he happened to hear a kangaroo out in the yard, he would start barking and wake everybody up. And the answer is no, he will not. Will he keep my dog's ears dry if he jumps in the pond? No, he won't. It will not. So, things like that. Hearing protection. That's what we're selling here.
And, you know, I loved it. I looked in your frequently asked questions, and one of the things I noticed was, well, can I just put cotton balls? Now, I have experience in this area, so I know exactly what the answer is, but I liked it.
Dogs don't like that.
They really don't.
Not at all. No.
And it'll work when you have to give them a bath. And that's the extent. And even at that, they're going to shake because there's a foreign agent in their ear, and they love to shake. So I love that question was there. That was a great question.
When we started this out, that was the keep it simple, stupid, right? Let's just put some earplugs in there. Well, now if you can get close enough, once he realizes you're trying to put something in his ear, ping! You need a couple people to hold him down to make that happen. So that idea got scrapped pretty quick.
And, you know, like I said, I do put cotton balls in dogs' ears on a very constant basis because, you know, being in grooming, we want to make sure we don't actually have water go in the canal for ear infections. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you, it can be a challenge to keep that cotton ball in there. So I get that.
Yeah, they don't like that.
No, they don't. So now I'm always curious about names. And I'm always curious how the name came about and maybe alternative names that you actually were thinking of doing, but, you know, decided against and ended up with the current name, MUTTS. So how did the name MUTTS start, and was there other options that you kind of toyed around with?
Well, when you start trying to think of a name for something like this, I mean, the only other name that was even a contender, like a doggy decibel reducer, and if you take note the product code, the product number on this thing starts with DDR. Doggy decibel reducer, mm-hmm. That's how that got named. But, no, that was the only name we could actually come up with, and it suits.
I like it.
Yeah. People stutter over it sometimes, but, you know, once you say it 1,000 times, it just rolls right off the tongue. Well, welcome to MUFF. Yeah.
I loved it. I was like, MUFF. And then, you know, a couple times you'll kind of blunder it a little bit, and you're like, no, MUFF. I mean, the first time I said MUFF, and I'm like, no, I think I missed that. So, but it's...
yeah, I've heard it all.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. And I was like, hey, it makes sense. Earmuffs. I mean, it does make sense. I mean, I can imagine if you would have said earmuffs, a little bit mouthy, worthy. So I like the fact that you kind of reduced it and made it work. And I was entertained. I like it. It does flow.
Well, and it's not like you can spit your verdict for, so. I mean,
exactly.
Now, forget it.
Yeah, right. Now, curiosity for all those, and we have a lot of people that do travel now because it's September. We're going to all be looking at the holidays, and that's going to come around before we all know it. Even right now, as we speak, we're probably thinking the holidays are coming before we know it, which is scary. So, where are places that people can order MUFFs?
Well, they can certainly order it off of our site. You can go to muttmuffs.com. Then that would redirect you to Safe and Sound Pets, which is the actual name of the company, although nobody knows it. They just call us MUTTS. We have 40, 50, 60 different retailers. Amazon, probably the biggest one. 40s, aircraft stores, a lot of pilot shops, a lot of gun shops, too, carry them.
Yeah. That makes sense. That actually makes sense. And, maybe I'm thinking probably somebody's going to gun shop. No, that makes sense. Again, let's go back to police dogs. Hello. That makes sense.
Yeah, when you fire at the range, you're definitely wearing something to room hearing. Yep.
That does make sense.
I was with you. He needs some too.
And, it's logic. I mean, like you said, if you need to protect your hearing, can you only imagine how we need to protect their hearing? I mean, that's just the simple part. So, out of curiosity, what's next?
What's next? Well, I don't know. This just keeps growing and growing. Not really because of me, almost in spite of me. I mean, somebody tells a friend, and they tell two friends, and off it goes. Like I say, the medical service dog crowd has really picked up, and I was talking to a lady today on the phone, and she's holding a brochure, and we're mentioned in there, and, so, I don't know. Well, we have other, kind of doggy travel-related products, like, travel bed, and a lot of it's still aviation-related. We have, bandanas that say co-pilot. We just came up with a bomber jacket that is so cute, and it was a big hit at an air show down in Florida. I don't even have it up on the website yet, so.
I was thinking about that. I'm like, I did not see bomber jacket. That was one of those things I just had out of my mind. I'm like, wait a second, where did I not? I missed something. And I didn't even throw this in. Air shows. How many people bring their dogs to an air show? It can get very loud.
Oh, definitely.
I didn't think about that until the second. So, yes. See, there's a lot of places now. Out of, weird curiosity, what if people are, and, we talked about the firework aspect, but what if people are actually at some kind of park or some event where there actually isn't going to be fireworks? Would you say that might be the right time to use them?
Instead of park?
Do what?
I'm not sure I understood. You're just out at a park?
Yeah, if you're at the park and there's going to be like a firework display and you have your dog with you, that would be a good idea to put the actual MUFFs on during then because you're practically underneath them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when we go to the fireworks display on the 4th of July, I've got my hands over my ears. Wow. True, especially when the really big ones go off. So see, it's not saying that you shouldn't put them on, it's just you don't need to put them on while in the house and the fireworks are miles and miles away. So I get that. Yeah, if there's nothing going on and, you're just making the dog model them for your own amusement, you're just annoying the dog, trust me. You can get them off at will. Whenever they don't want them on, they're coming off.
That is true. They are resourceful. Trust me, I get that. What have we not covered that we should have covered, if anything?
Well, I don't know. Or if anybody would have questions, they can contact me through the website, muttmuffs.com. My mission every day is just to answer these kind of questions.
And you do a great job at it, and you're fun to talk to. So that's what makes, all of it so much more fun for me.
Well, and you're not going to get a recording when you call, or you're not going to have to press 1 for this and 2 for this. People actually flip out when we answer the phone.
Oh, yeah, that's
it's just not expected anymore.
That is true. Actually, when I first sent you the inquiry about being on, I was waiting to be redirected a few times and send emails out like typical. And here you're like, just give me a call. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not. A lot of times I have to jump through a few hoops, so it was quite nice to be able just to go right in and, hey, how's it going?
How about that?
That was great. And I didn't have to push 1 or 2. That was also very nice.
Didn't have to put your account number in. Didn't have to wait on hold with sticky music. Yeah, just.
I don't know.
Fun.
The elevator music still to this day, though. I mean, it is kind of fun, even though I absolutely can't stand it. I'm waiting for those days to end. That's got to end here soon. Well, thank you, Michelle, for being on the podcast. Come back anytime, share more stories with us, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it. I really, really, really do.
Well, I hope it's a big hit.
I'm sure you will. Well, I'm Chris Green. Have a fantastic week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, gotta go in my bedtime.